And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is. What time is it? What time is it where you are? Is it early morning? Is it late at night? Are you ready for a story? Oh, so I'm staying with some old friends, and I could have, like I did earlier, uh, put us live doing what we were doing, but we were talking about serious things, art and cultural aesthetics, and so my close friends like the fact that I can unearth things from them, and I don't make any comments. I just help unearth things, and so that's not a time to put it out on the World Wide Web, even though these weren't personal or emotional things, but they were because we were talking about aesthetics and theology and art and what is art and why is art important. Art is we have a GDP in America, right? Gross domestic product. What everything makes money, right? And how much money is made, right? The largest thing that makes money of all the things that we do, oil and manufacturing cars and weapons and war and making food and all that commercial corporate things that the GDP measures, the largest thing makes the most money is art. Like, what are you talking about? Those paintings? No, no. I'm talking about everything. Everything that's creative is art, right? So I teach this course in this small public school that's way out in the middle of the country, nowhere. And the principal is my bud. So he wanted me to teach, and they took all my information and looked at my bona fide and what I've done, my curriculum vitae, and they said, you're just overqualified. So I don't get paid to be nice too, but I can live like a millionaire on $400, right? And that's something you should learn how to do. So I'm not really motivated by money. So, I get a little bit here and there, but that's all I need. $400, right? Even when large expense like fixing my car, that cost me almost $400 the last 5 months. Each month, 300 and something. The last one was 400 and something. So I basically didn't eat that much, didn't go that much anywhere. Didn't spend any money. Period. And that's if we did that, we'd be fine. So if you look at the play Hamilton, right, and there's this big tussle between Hamilton and was it Burr or the other one? Anyway, the short guy. The short guy said that we had to balance our budget all the time, right? Don't spend any money, blah blah blah. Hamilton said, fine, we print the money. We can print as much as we want. As a government, we need to keep spending cash to expand our enterprise, right? If we horn ourselves in by, we can't spend any money, we won't go anywhere. We'll just blow away. And he was right. Money is irrelevant. It's just a tool, like a hammer, right? And to believe it has a value, it's just a vehicle, right? So everything that is being done at this moment, politically, socially, economically, basically are being hamstringed within the construct of a dialectic, right? And that's a worldview. And here we are we can either be, motivated by the aesthetic of love's co-creation, which is what art is. It's that, why did that guy make the cave painting? He didn't. His caveman didn't need that. He needed to express that others could understand, right? So he drew the painting on the cave, right? And that's where our consciousness came out of the animal, right? And that's what kind of separates us from the rest, because otherwise we're just an animal like all the rest. Other animals use, the different apes that use sticks to get ants out of the earth. I mean, that's a tool. It's not humans are special because we make tools. No, right? Um, the whales make music like no one else. Um, there is philosophy and science and understanding in animals, right? But the dynamic of their angst is, they are just a creature of love's co-creation. They are in it. They don't, they don't break from the mold. We do, right? And so, not to say that animals don't feel or don't understand or don't love or don't share or don't think of things. They do all of those things. I'm a dog boy. I've had lots of dogs, and I've lived with them. I've lived in the north with them, where they and I supported each other. Without each other, we be dead, right? So, um, and I've had loads of dogs all through my life, and the thing about dogs is they want you to be the alpha. They don't want to be. When they're the alpha bull, they just they worry, they freak out, they skits. That's why dogs are poorly behaved, because they are not integrated into their owner. The owner deals with their animal like it was a piece of jewelry or something that they could just put on or walk around and look, oh, aren't they cool? And I see that all the time. And where I live, where all the cockroaches, they all get, oh, well, we never could have dogs. Now we have tons of dogs. So, they get this bitch and then she can just keep popping puppies out. It's free. Yeah. Then you got to take care of them. You got to be there. And when you don't, they go crazy. They actually do. I mean, that's when, dogs need a psychologist, and it's when the dogs have, panic attacks, A dog out in the will no panic attack. No. They know what to do. But they're very social animals. That's why they live in packs, right? So, and pretty much all animals are social. All animals. There are very few animals who are loners all by themselves. Even turtles and snakes and things like that, they have communities, right? Where I live, I feel like I'm living on, I'm the guy with the big canoe and put all the animals in them, right? Noah in the ark, because all the animals are, since Colonel Sanders and Grandpa Cockroach have split the scene, the neighborhood, that I live in, has quieted down 100%. Now it's just women energy, right? So they're doing their thing amongst some things, and I'm not bothering them, not snooping or prying, or I'm always, hey, how you doing? Have a good day. And if I have, people send, I do a lot of things for a lot of people around, right? And I'm in fellowship with many churches, and no one pays me anything. I fix things for people. I don't really get paid. I mean, they want to give me money, I take it. I'm not dummy. I take whatever they want. But they don't have anything. What they do is kindness, consideration, and they get a garden. They bring me vegetables, right? And so everyone looks at me and thinks I'm in amazing health, and I talk well, so they think I have teeth, but I don't. There's a lot of things I can't eat, like corn. I can't eat corn. And apples. I mean, I can take corn and take the kernels and put them in a pot and boil them up and eat them. And I can do that, but corn isn't good for my gut, right? And so I don't, so what the corn I get, and, when corn comes in, I get people drop, just bags of it on my front lawn there. And so I hand it out to other people. People give me tons of bread and cookies and and frosted flakes, and I can't eat that, so I give it to other people, right? Who can? I'm just helping to spread it around, right? And so anyway, that's how I survive, because a couple, I don't know how long ago it was, at least maybe, I don't know, somewhere between June and now, well, June and middle of July, our weather has been particularly very nice. I mean, we had a mostly wet spring and early summer, but not rain all the time, just at night, which is perfect. You're asleep, right? Maybe sunny today, so my lawn and my gardens. I don't have vegetable gardens anymore. I just have medicinal gardens, which just grow. I don't do anything to them. And end of the season, I take my weed whacker and take them all out, and then I turn them into poultices and tonics and things like that. And that's mostly what keeps me in pretty good shape. And I'll suck on roots and berries, and I eat a lot of burdock and a lot of dandelion. So let's see, where's my glass? I mean, guys, if you do it, text me. Please put it in caps so I can read it. Are you in New York City? No. Okay. I lived in New York City. I grew up in New York City. I was the dude of Soho. I was the dude of Tribeca, dude of Williamsburg. I was involved in, you name it, I was involved in it, right? And that's having a life. Some young woman came to visit my friends, and she kind of, she's like maybe like all my friends are younger than I am, but most are not that, like these folks. They're maybe only 10 years younger than me, and maybe five. And and we've all kind of had our own path. At least all my best friends, we've all had our own path, not the same path. And but one of my greatest gifts is being in the right place at the right time. So I was telling this girl these stories, right? And what I love about my friends here, they have all these. So I don't really stick in one place, right? I can spend a good deal of time someplace. Like I spent in Asheville, I spent 10 years, right? And I spent 30 years in New York City on and off because by the time I got 16, I learned that traveling was, I enjoyed that, right? So I would travel, I would do work and make a chunk of change and then go travel for a year, right? You can spend all that change in a very quick time in wherever you like New York City or any singular place you are because you get roots, you pay rent, you buy stuff to put in the place that you're paying rent on, and so. But if you're on the BOP, you have all the money you need. I had many um, skill sets, right? So I'm a great electrician. I mean, I do things that most electricians, I can tune a high voltage transformer. Most people can't do that. I can work on distribution of high tension. I know most people can't do that. I can do anything, and I mean everything now is so digital. But when I was doing that, I could do controls very well. But I am still today excellent at terminating a job. Meaning, you wire a house, right? You drill holes, pull wire through it, set boxes, do all that. Any monkey could do that. But to lay it out the way it should be, it takes somebody in my experience, right? So one day I come in, I have a little magic marker, a tape measure, and I had to, usually what I do, I find an electrician who's stuck, and I said, okay, get me two guys who know nothing, right? So I go there, I lay the job out, I show them how it's done, I give them a book called the National Electric Code. And I said, guys, just look at this. There's a nice catalog. You want to know what height a box should be? There it is. Look it up. And but I will set this job for you. I will take my little magic marker and put a line. I had a thing, straight line, and I'd have a jig, meaning I'd have a stick that was the height where the bottom of the stick goes on the floor. Top of the stick is where either the outlet goes or the switch. And so I'd have to be gonna set a box for. So I would show them all of this, put little holes where to drill, right? And then I would get a big, I would be in charge of going to get the right materials. I get the exact number of boxes so there wouldn't be a bunch around so other people could take them. And by the time I get back with that and the wire, I have a 500-foot reel, put it between 2x4s and a piece of pipe, and just it comes out nice and straight. Instead of getting in a box where it's all like this and it gets all tangled up, you get into the 500-foot roll, just roll it out. And when it's on a roll, you stick the roll right where the panel is going to be, and just roll the wire and just kind of pull it through all those holes and up where it's going to go over here. You stick it over, you have nailed down the box, not all the way, just tap, 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 so it's up there good. You loop a little wire over it. And then you do that for all the boxes, all the circuits, all the home runs, and you explain it to them as you're doing it, right? And then so they've drilled all the holes, they pulled all the wire, I've set the panel, I've done other things that, I as an electrician, like put the mast in, and I will get one of them to help me because you got to go up on a ladder and do that. Or if it's underground, I have a guy who comes with a ditch digger and they pull it, and then we put the wires there, put the pipe into the house up to the panel, and we'll meter first outside panel, right? And I show the boys how to do it, and I have them do most of the work. I do all the things like knock out the knockout. So they not, if you don't know which knockout to do, you shouldn't have that person. So I do all the things that they don't know, then I have them put it together. And so we could rough out a house in, 8 hours, right? And so I would have these guys, I would, first lay it out, right? Put all the marks, give them the drills to drill the holes, and then go up get materials because I've already put in the boss, I gave the boss the list, and sometimes the materials would get delivered, right? But I would show up at a job with a box of donuts and a big thermos of coffee, right? I said, this is all you get, coffee and donuts, no cigarettes on the job, right? You can have a smoke at 11 with donuts. You can have as much coffee as you want, but as long as it lasts, and you can, have at least 4 donuts, but that's it, right? So get to it. So they do that. I would do other things. If I had to go, I would go get stuff, and I would bring back a meal, lunch, right? And we'd have that where we could rest. If they had to smoke, they could smoke, and they could relax and be in the shade or in the warmth, whatever time of weather it was. Anyway, that house, after that we did rough in a house, they knew how to rough in a house, right? And usually I would get hired by a contractor that had like 10 houses, and he had like just enough men to do 2 or 3 at a time. So we would take up the slack, right? And so we would go do that. We'd set the boxes, we pull the wire, we put the panel, we put the meter, we put the drop, or, if it was going to be in ground, probably their guys would do it. They had a guy who was good at doing that, right? So, and by the third house, because not only would we rough it in, we would then trim, and that's getting ready for the inspection, so they can put the insulation and the sheetrock on, and then you come and set the devices, like the switches and the plugs, and so the switches, you can have 3-way switches. That's where you can turn the light on and off from 2 different places, or single pole switch, for the light. So we'd set everything up, and so we could, when I would have guys who had no idea what, nothing about electric work, I could teach them to be really good mechanics, and I could do that within 3 or 4 jobs, 3 or 4 houses, and then we would go do something a little more complicated, like go do a Wendy's or something of that nature, or we do warehouses, and so I teach them how to bend pipe and stuff like that. So, between the ages of 40 and 60, I did a lot of that while I was doing all this other work. While I was being the itinerant scholar, while I was working at Cornell, when I was working for, the CFR Trilateral Commission, I would go to those places that they wanted me to study. Instead of going, I'm here to study this, what I would do is I would go scope out the neighborhood. I would then go, I said, so where's electric supply house? Oh, Lowe's? I said, no, electric supplies. Oh, you mean where real electricians go? Yes, go there. And there's always a counter, and there's always a popcorn machine and never-ending coffee, right? And also, if you get there early enough, a box of donuts, right? So when I show up on site, I first take a little glance around what it is, and then I find a and then so I sit there and start talking to the guys in the counter, right? And so they talk to me and they say, "Oh, wow," because I know, what this kind of switch is, what this does, that boom, bada bing. And I'd be there for a couple hours, and people come in, "How do I do this?" And the guy who was at the counter, he had to deal with other guys and getting the stuff, and the person who shouldn't really be there should be at Lowe's, but he went to Lowe's, and the people at Lowe's were morons. So he came to Bruce Place, and I would tell them. So the counter guy, "I like you. You all you want is coffee and donuts and popcorn." I said, "Well, yes, that's very nice, and I like talking to you, and I like hearing your stories, and I like telling you mine. But when I'm really here, I am waiting for that electrician to come in, who is at he's over, he's taken too many jobs, he's over, his workers are morons, and he just can't. He wants to put a gun in his mouth, right?" And he goes, "Oh, I know two guys just like that." I said, "But when they come in, point them out to me or introduce me to them and say, hey, Bob, this guy really knows what he's doing." And so, before 4 hours of me being there, one of those kind of guys would walk in, the counter guy would say, hey, Bob, come over here. I want you to meet Al. And so we would talk, and I said, "So what's your problem?" And he said, "Well, I'm just doing." I said, "So what are you doing? Like commercial work, industrial work? Are you doing jails, hospitals, schools? What are you doing? Houses? You got a lot of houses to do?" And he would tell me his problem, and I said, "I can take care of that." I said, "What you really need is organization. Now I can go around all your jobs, and you tell all these people, Al's here to help us, and he's going to organize, right? He's not the boss, he's not this, but he is a good organizer, and he's going to take up our slack, right?" So he would introduce me in that the first morning, where usually everyone comes together either to shop, but if they're doing a big job, they go to a big job, right? So, I would go to their shop in the morning. Who's ever there? Who's going to go up? Hey, this is Al. He's going to be, doing, I have to do the business work. He's going to go get the materials. He's going to go take up the slack, whatever it is, right? So within a week, I would do all that to the point where I made everyone look good. Instead of them all going, "Oh, I can't do this," I would just step in and say, "Here, let me try this. What do you think about that? Here, let's try this. Okay, good. Look, you got it. Right, you got a question? Just ask me." And I would, after a week, everyone was like comfy with that whole thing, and they were all everything was humming along like a well-oiled machine. And when I would talk to this guy, I said, "Listen, all I want is $100 a day. And after the first week, you tell me whether you want me to stay and how much more you're willing to pay me. And if you say, well, I can't use you, well, it's been, 5 days, $500. Thank you very much." Right? So that's what I did for 40 years, along with doing this other stuff, because it was such a great guys. I mean, I'd be going there really to look at this and watch these people and, investigate this. But what better cover than being an electrician? You could be almost anything. "Oh, I'm just an electrician." And so my clients who had me do these other things were like, "All right, buddy." So I never had to climb a ladder. I never had to compete, because there was no competition with me. There was nobody else like this. When I was a newspaper photographer in Harbor, North Carolina, I just slid right in. And I did the job as well as anybody else did it, and better in lots of other ways, because I could, I, so High Point, North Carolina, you had this in 1968, was the height of the furniture, right? It was like IKEA Central, it's like better than IKEA. All these big furniture factories, and they're all union. And so all the workers on the floor of the factories were white and black and Hispanic and everything else, right? They all got paid the same thing. They were all brothers. So that town, High Point, Raleigh was over here, Durham's over here, but over here's the flatlands, all tobacco and cotton and rednecks like you can't believe. Boy, can you squeal like a pig, boy? It's that kind of place. When so I dropped in, and a friend of mine, I was just sleeping on a friend of mine's um, um, couch. This is in the years that I was staying away from my draft board, right? In 68, 69, 70, 71 ish. And so and I didn't want to break any laws. I was just hard to find. I never stayed any place long enough to get mail, or have a bill. I know 1968, 69, right? And I had a bunch of contacts. I'd done a lot of rock and roll shows, so I knew, I was on the road a good deal before then, 66 to 68. I was on the road. So I knew a lot of people all over the place. That's why I was staying with this guy in Hapwine, North Carolina. We were both photographers, but he was, doing it as his thing, right? Had a lot of things. That was his only thing. And so I'm sleeping there, and phone rings. We're watching TV, and he goes, "Huh? What? What? Oh, sure, I'll do that. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's I'm sad that Charlie's dead, but yeah, I can do it. I can take his place." So he hangs up and he looks at me. "Hey, do you want to be a newspaper photographer? It's like being Batman." I was like, "Yeah, why not? Yes." Do I get paid in cash? Yeah, you get paid in cash. A little envelope. So I said, "Fine." So I, went down, met his boss and his boss, and then I met the owner, right? And he's really one of the richest guys. High Point Enterprise newspaper. It was the third largest newspaper in the South, right? Had a couple TV stations. This guy had some money. So I said, "Sure, love it. Yeah, put me to work." So he said, "Fine, you'll be under your buddy, and he'll work you into the flow." I said, "Yeah." So, um, so Booker, you didn't say anything. Who and what you are? Are you in New York City? Like I said, I grew up in New York City. So anyway, I'm there, and at first, so I go down, I learn all how to do it. It was a great. This was a cold type newspaper. There's hot type newspapers and cold type newspapers back in the day. And back in the day, hot type was you had a linotype machine, and the guy, the whole article would be done, and the editor would put it, and then they put it there, and the guy would type it into the linotype machine. The linotype machine would make lead letters and drop it into the frame, right? And then the frame was put on the wheel of the printing press to make the newspaper. And that worked pretty good, but it's still hot lead, and it's still heavy, and it's still an art. It's a real art, super art form. Cold type, everything in the newspaper is on a mainframe computer. The guy who's taking a picture takes it over to the photographer. Doesn't develop the negatives. He takes it to the photo department, and the photo department does everything, photograph everything. And so they take your little canister of film, no matter 35, 2.25, or even 10 by 10. And they have machines that they feed, in a dark bag. Like it's like a bag. Put your hands in. You put the film canister in there. You zip it up, and you can take it out and stick it into the slot. The machine sucks it in and develops your negatives and does it perfectly, right? So you have no problems, period. If you're doing it in a canister, if it's not too hot, too cold, this, that, or the other thing, you can get your negatives are not perfect. This machine does it perfect, right? So that was great. I was never, I could do all of that, but that was my favorite part. I'm a great printer, and I'm a great taker of pictures, but everything in between, not so good. I can do it, but I'm, because it really is chemistry. When you're mixing your chemicals, if you don't do it right, it doesn't develop the film or the paper right. So anyway, I hand it over to those guys. They do a perfect job. And then they take that film and this is 1968. This is how much technology is ahead of what you think is, that's pretty cool. Cold type was everything was digital in 1968. And the High Point Enterprise was everything digital. So all the guys who wrote the stories, they just had a desk. They just typed it straight into the machine. The machine did the rudimentary correction of editing, and then the editor, who is more about the content, would see it and on his computer thing he could mark things and send it back to the guy who wrote it and say, I want you to do this, this, or this. The guy would do it, and then he would send it back to the editor, and the editor, after that, if the guy hadn't really done it, he would just kind of rewrite it the way the editor, because the editor knew what the owner wanted, right? The product that was coming out with that guy's name on it. So anyway, so that's how the process was. So for me, it was not, all I did was take pictures, none of that other stuff that was, I could do it, but, I didn't like the pressure. I was thinking, wow, it's one thing for me to take pictures and then develop them for myself and then use them in whatever way. But, you got a job where if you fuck this up, that car crash ain't going to happen again. This other thing, that speech or that person or that, the flower show, they're not going to do it over again. So you take a picture, So, so I was great at taking a picture and taking a picture that told the story. Didn't just, I always lined myself up to show what was really, so that one or two pictures people could really identify, emulate, empathize, all the rest, instead of just being, capturing that. So I was really good at that. A photo editor, my buddy, he said, "Yeah, you're making me look good. I don't, you're doing most of the shooting now. I'm happy as a client," because he was screwing everything he could. And so I got to know everybody, the mayor, that you name it, I knew them because I was taking pictures of them all the time. But the first day on the job, it was Sunday, and I was, not, oh, don't worry about it. You just had to be on call. So this is my first day on the job. I'm on call. It's Sunday. Nothing's supposed to really happen. Phone rings. And this, not my buddy, but the news editor. I said, I can't get Mark. I don't know where he is. So, but you're on call. So I called you. And so a police car is going to come by and pick you up. And I said, why? And he goes, well, our police department doesn't have a CSI, right? And so the state, when something of that nature has to be done, we do have a guy who's a bomb, a guy who puts people on the ground. He can do, look at the cause of why somebody died, but he's not a forensic guy, right? So he does the initial thing. That's all that's needed. That's fine, right? If he looks at him and could say, he could sign, because back in those days, I think even today, to be a mortuary guy and a guy saying why somebody died, it's not a big deal, right? So anyway, but if it is a big deal, then it goes to the SBI, State Bureau of Investigation. But they need the photos taken before the scene is touched, right? So we have, the newspaper has done it for years for the police department, and we scratch their back, they scratch ours. So, and we get to keep those pictures. If they're really great for the newspaper, hey, we print them. That's the relationship, unless it's evidential, right? So anyway, he's like, oh yeah, whatever, I can do this. And so the cop picks me up. We drives to the scene. There's this guy who's a sarge. I go over to him, and he's looking at me up and down. So I'm like all of 68, so I'm all of 18. And he's looking me up and down. He said, you're the new guy. I said, yes, sir. He goes, just call me Sarge. Yes, Sarge. And what I call you, Al. Well, okay, Al. And so he goes, he's looking at me. I got a spaghetti string T-shirt, and orange shorts and flip-flops. He goes, in my car over there, in the trunk, you'll find some waiters. Now, the only waiters I knew were guys with trays, right? I said, what? He said, just go over there. You'll see them. It's in a box. What? Just go. So I go over there, and, there's this box, and there are these waiters. Open it up, and there are these white boots that go up to your chest with straps. It's like, those things that you go into the water, go fishing, but it's white, white, not green, not yellow, not purple, white, right? So, and it had these like super treaded boots, right? So, what these things are, this is for guys who work in slaughterhouses, right? Cut up cows and pigs and stuff, right? So I put it on, and then and I had in in my apartment, I had my cameras, which were really from they weren't. I didn't own them. The newspaper did, but they had this forensic camera equipment, right? And so it was in a like suitcase, right? So I was in my, so that's for okay. So when the guy came and got me, I took the suitcase with me, and we went there, and the sergeant gave me these waders and took me in there. And what it was this little tiny house, about as big as this space, about 12 feet wide, maybe 16 feet long, and a hallway that way to bedrooms. But it was, living room, kind of kitchen, and walked in there, and it was pretty brightly lit with fluorescent light from the kitchen. And there were four guys in parts, and they were four brothers. They were playing cards, and they were drinking and probably doing some other substances. And they got upset at each other, and they grabbed each other's shotguns and went at it in this room. So when it's a small little room and you're not going to run away, and you start shooting at each other, at 8 feet with a shotgun, you blow things off. So there were heads and arms and all of the above, right? So I went in, and I before I went in, I started looking at the camera. And a forensic camera is your basic Nikon with a 50, right? And it has this ring strobe, which is quite nice, right? And so, and a motor draw, so you didn't have to do this, just right? So he goes, so wherever there's blood, wherever there's anything, don't mess or move or tread on anything. Tiptoe around the space. Step in a place where you're not going to leave a mark, right? So I went in there and I started to like art photographer, right? Like I was Ouija or something. And he goes, "Yo, kid, come here." I said, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "Sarge." "Yes, Sarge." "And again, your name?" "Al." "Oh, Al? How's that spelled?" "O-W-L." "What?" I said, "Sarge." "Okay, Al." So, anyway, he goes, "That's no. And then he explains, he goes, here's our little box, our little forensic box. And it had these about 40 numbers, 1, 2, 3, up to 40. And each one had 6 little yellow plastic things and in dark letters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 of them, right? So for each thing, like somebody's head over there, you kind of put these numbers around them, and it would give you, whether if you took a picture straight down or straight on or sideways, these numbers would give. First, you take a picture back so you can see all the numbers and where they are. And they had these little kind of marks at the bottom. So I was shooting in black and white, and the yellow and the dark and the little mark showed up in that strobe. And so the marks showed the angles of where these markers were. So when they looked at the picture and they saw the little, number with the mark, they would know whether it was straight on, sideways, straight down, whatever, right? And you did that to each of the pieces of evidence, up to 40 something pieces of evidence, and you shot it in all those angles, right? And I shot, change the roll, shot, change the roll, shot, change the roll. And the guy is just watching me and goes, So he says, yeah, and I got covered in blood, no matter how much I tried to tiptoe around the thing. And he was just sitting over there smoking a cigarette by the door, smiling and kind of chuckling. Anyway, so I finished the job. I had about 12 rolls of film. And the guy goes, this is the first time you ever did this? I said, yes, sir, Sarge. And he goes, well, you did a really, really good job. And you didn't even throw up. Most guys who do this throw up the first 4 times, right? I said, well, I've seen a bit of this, so it's not something new. And he said, really? You're going to tell me that story? So anyway, he said, you're in the Army? I said, no, not really. Not going there. But I'll tell you the story, just another time. He goes, fine. We can start telling stories right now. And I said, oh, so I'm all covered in blood. He said, no, come outside. He hoses me down, right? He shakes out the waiters. He puts it back in a box, puts it in his trunk. He goes, let's drive over to the newspaper. You give him the film. And then, do you like pie? I said, boy, do I like pie. Sure. So we're going to go to the Pink Teacup. By the time we finish, taking it over there and walking through the door of the Pink Teacup, it's maybe 2 a.m. I got there probably 6 o'clock at night. He had me shoot. First, he had me shoot around the house, right, just to get a thing of what the house was, and then down that street, and then we went inside, and we finished, and then taking the film to the developing guy in the newspaper, and then we waited around. The guy did it very quickly. It took him all half an hour to give us prints, right? Because he had a machine. He would develop the film, dry it, put it in the thing that shoot. It would either give you a thing of all. What do they call it? When it shows all of the shots you showed. A contact sheet, right? And it also gave 8x10s, right? And again, it just bang, 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 bang. So within 40 minutes, and we went over to one of the news editors that was a woman, and he liked her, and so they were flirting, and I was like talking to some other guys, and they were going, "Oh, you're the new guy," and so 40 minutes, he and I went over the Pink Teacup to have peach pie, ice cream, and coffee, and it was the best coffee, best peach pie I ever had, and ice cream was amazing because all of that was made. They ground it, they roasted the coffee, everything about the peach pie was from scratch. They grew the peaches, they had the cows. They made the ice cream. It was just unbelievable. And we probably ate a whole peach pie, and maybe a little bit, half of a cherry, and he was very impressed that I could keep up with him eating pie and telling stories. So by the time we finished, it was time for breakfast. And so we had breakfast. Then I went to sleep. So that was usually my what I did every day, right? I photographed, the mayor cutting ribbons and kissing babies and giving speeches at the Kiwanis Club. And they had a lot of flower. The ladies did a lot of flower shows, did a lot of that. When I had the big furniture mart, I would shoot that. And pretty much I just walk around and shoot people, black, white, yellow. I just walked through town. It was a beautiful little town, a great library. My buddy's mom was a librarian. No, his father was a librarian. She had a college gig. And so it was sublime, right? And everyone got to know me, and I wasn't really having to impress anybody, just being me. And so, and pretty much all my meals were at the Pink Teacup, and it was in the black part of town, and it was a black run and owned business, and virtually all the white people ate there. It was the best food in town, and had a big dining room. And it was, blacks over there, whites, everyone sat together. It was quite extraordinary. And the counter was for the counter. I called it the counterculture. That's why the place I go have breakfast, I call it the counterculture. Because, everyone's gotten rid of their counter. And the guy sitting at the counter was always the police chief, the fire chief, mayor, the highway patrol colonel, the 4 big bankers. And that was as high as the class structure was, because those guys were not the top of the class; they were upper management. No, they didn't come there. there was a dining room in the back that those guys went to. They had their own entrance, right? But I ate most of my meals there. And maybe the second or third week was there. And I was sleeping on the couch with my buddy, and it was getting thin. I was thinking of, and I was making $300 a week, plus all my expenses. Every meal, everything I did, that cash was just what I'd go below, right? And so I was sleeping on his couch. So, and I didn't have a car. I drove the, and this is a thing that's occurred to me a number of times. I've worked with somebody, they give me a vehicle to drive, and they don't say, "Do you have a legal driver's license?" And they would ask me, "Do you know how to drive?" And I said, "Sure, I know how to drive," right? But in New York City, I didn't need a car. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have that kind of teenage angst of getting my driver's license. I just got around. And then I had my disposable cars. I had a buddy who ran the place where the pound where if your car got towed, he would hold it until you paid them a lot of money. And if they didn't, after, I think it was 3 weeks, he would sell the vehicle at auction and he would buy them. He would be the only person at the auction. And then right next to that pound, he had his own used cars. Okay, right. And so he's a buddy of mine. I knew him from Cooper. And his daddy had this job. So he was like, it's New York City, what do you call it, nepotism. And all the New York City ones on that. It's still Tammany Hall. So anyway, doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican, it's still Tammany Hall. So in New York, this guy, I got to know him, like I said, I knew him from Cooper. So he got this job, and I went to visit him. We smoked pot at the end of the pier. Anyway, he started this. His daddy didn't have a used car thing. He would just sell them once in a while. But anyway, he did. And so he was hooked up to the DMV on the computer, and he'd sell them, and he would get those cardboard, license tags printed out. And you had 30 days to go register your car. I mean, you'd have the title saying you owned it, but to register it and insure it and do all that stuff, you had 30 days to do that. So what I would do, I would buy a car for $100. It drove well, and nobody wanted it. And he would sell it to me. It was my $100 car. I even had $50 cars. And I would drive it around, and I'd have the cardboard tag. And I would just constantly had these little stickers that looked just like the things that were on. So unless you really got close to that cardboard tag, it looked like, so the date, I could change the date each month. I could change, the November to December. And so I did that until the car got towed. And I would go back to my buddy. He'd say, "You want your car back? $100. Or if you don't want your car back, you can just take all your stuff out." Right? So I had that. So that's what I did in New York. I never had a license. I never had any of that. So I would work for people. "You know how to drive?" "Sure." Right? So, that was one. "You know how to drive?" "Yes." "So we'll let you drive one of our cars." And it was a totally black. This one of my friends said you were like Batman. It was a police car, LTD, right? But totally black. They took the black and white off, just black, right? But it still had a police radio in it and a scanner, right? And we had what was known as a radio telephone, which is today cell phones. So Motorola, right? So I drove around that car. And I remember the chief of police, once he kind of tried to check me out, and he goes, "Al, you're like the Invisible Man." You've got a social security number, but you've been all over the place, and there's no continuity. It's like there's 100 of you. I mean, how did that happen? I said, "Well, I'm a traveling guy. I just kind of cruising in this place. I came from Duke, came from here." And I said, "What's the problem?" He goes, "Well, I was going to get you." He goes, "I'm giving you an interim driver's license just because I realized that you didn't have a driver's license, because when we went to look for you, you weren't in New York DMV. And there were, things about you that we could see that you kind of exist. You had a social security number. You had worked at different places. They were like all over the place. I mean, out of the country, in the country, different sides of the country. you know, I said, I'm a young guy who's not tied down, and I stick around as long as I'm interested. I said, well, we're going to give you an interim driver's license. I said, oh, good. He said, the only reason we did that because you're at an age that you would have to take a course and take the test, and then you couldn't drive. I said, well, do this thing, no problem. And the guy who owns the newspaper wanted you to have it so his insurance would be fine. So I said, nah, good by me. Anyway, so I just, and so one day, so I got to know the people at the Pink Teacup really well. And the lady who owned it, Ethel, she was really a hoot, you know, a force of nature herself. And that place had been in their family, 5 generations. And so even during the Civil War. And so one day she's screaming in the kitchen, just throwing pots and pans and screaming and just cursing like a blue streak. And I went, Ethel, what is wrong? Calm down. She goes, this refrigerator, I can't take it. She had this gigantic, big walk-in refrigerator. And it was like, frozen, not supposed to be like the North Pole, right? And she goes, it's either the North Pole or Hades. And she goes, either way, the food gets destroyed. There's only that interim period that, I said, okay, so let me take a look, right? So I looked at it and I said, Ethel, do you know that this refrigerator runs on ammonia? She said, yeah, I know it does because no one will fix it. They don't want to touch it because playing with that, you can kill yourself. Ammonia is very deadly. And you can kill everyone in the restaurant. I said, okay. So there's something, I said, do you have a hair dryer? And do you have a really bright light? And do you have an emery board? And she goes, yeah. So she went and got those and some extension cords. And I set up the light and I had the hair dryer. And there's this coil outside of the refrigerator where the secondary compressor is, right? And it's like a little thermostat, basically, right? And it tries to figure out the difference between the air on the outside of the box and the inside and the barometric pressure and the dew point, because all of that's important to ammonia because how it does the gas expansion law depends on all of those characteristics. And it's very analog, very mechanical. So not many people know, but I did because I worked for the guy who owned Hotel Bar and Butter and fixed all his ancient refrigeration. How you doing? You all done? Time to go to bed?
Yep.
How to go?
Go to bed.
Okay. So I'm not making a wave for you guys. I'm good down here doing this. Yeah. Okay. Sweet dreams. See you in the morning.
Okay, see you in the morning.
Yep. So so I knew how to do it. So I basically took the hair dryer, and you could see the little valve in there moving because you could get it real hot fast, and it would do this, and then you could take it away, and it would cool down relatively quickly, and so the emery board, I went in there and just sanded off the little connective tissue between the spring and the valve, right? And that was a bit too close, and so it either did one or the other, but not a nice happy medium. So I just kind of and engaged it with the dryer and sanded it. And she's looking at me doing this, and she's not saying anything. And then I said, "Okay, it's all done." And she goes, "Not a word." She goes, "I want to show you something." So we go up the back stairs and go into this, what had been a, what do they call that? Not a saloon, but during the, when you couldn't have alcohol, you went speakeasy. It was speakeasy, really high end speakeasy. I mean, just, and speakeasy slash brothel. So there's about 10 really nice bedrooms, right? And this big, music hall kind of space with a big long bar and and no windows. A skylight, but no windows. And so it had some sunlight coming in. And she goes, "How would you like to live here?" And I said, "What? Yes, you can stay here rent free. Just keep fixing stuff because everything in this place is ancient. It keeps breaking down. No one knows how to fix it. You seem to, right?" So I said, "Yeah." She goes, "You get to eat free, stay here free, and have a good time." I said, "Can I have guests?" "Oh, yes, you're going to have guests. You have parties all you want. We haven't really used it at all because that's not our business set. But you do that. We might even be able to co-create something, right?" So she was big into co-creation, one of my great mentors of co-creation. Anyway, so I agreed, and we went back. She goes, "But don't tell anybody. It's you realize that High Point is not like anywhere else, but we still have these guideposts and rails that for when these other people come in who are like, oh, we don't quite so you can't let the secret out. So by you living here in the black section, and you just you got to keep it on the down low." I said, "How do you have a party?" And I said, "Well, you'll figure it out." I said, "Oh, okay." It's a gigantic place. I had like 10 bedrooms I could sleep in, and she had girls who worked for her, and so it was quite interesting. Anyway, so and everyone said, "Well, you're not living at Mark's now. No. Where are you living?" You know me, Freebird, and they people kept. I was like the mystery. So I took pictures of everybody. You got to know. I talked to everybody, listened to their stories, told them my stories. I entertained them, but they had no idea who and what I was, except they loved me, and they loved me for they knew who and what I was right there. And I kept saying, "Listen, I only live in this minute, this second, right here. You're my best friend right now. Not back there and not in the future. It's not here yet." So and so, you know. So one day, it's like my day off, and so I don't have my, you know, and I got a phone number. And this was almost close to where ring, "Hey, Ethel, get me." So I did have the phone man, who was a buddy of mine. I had him bring a phone wire from way over from that section of town into my little nightclub world, and had a big, kick-ass, gigantic 400-pound, mirrored ball with five Lecos. When I turned that sucker on, it was like, whoa. Anyway, so when I pick up the phone, Ethel would hear that I was in that exchange over there. So the closest I could figure, "You're living over in that neighborhood." So so I was as down low as I could get. And so, but other people started, Sarge knew where I lived, and a few other people knew where I lived, and my boss knew where I lived, and because they knew, the lady who ran the Pink Teacup really well, like best of friends, because they had that room in the back for the rich folk, right? So, so everything was going fine. And one morning, I don't know why, but there was this amazing staircase that came from the speakeasy down into the main dining room, right? That no one ever used. They used it to store stuff on it. And, there weren't a lot of girls using those rooms, but so there were about five that were like my rooms. But they had, closets full of amazing, Japanese kimonos and just the. So I started wearing those around town, right? And and people would, when I went to it, when I was on the job, no, I got myself a nice gray suit, no tie, nice white shirt. I bought 10 really, brand new starchy white shirts and a nice gray jacket that fit in gray pants, black socks, black shoes. So when I was on the job, that's what I wore. Otherwise, God knows what I would be wearing. And everyone got used to that. Everyone got comfortable with that. It was not a problem. Right? And that's what a beautiful town High Point was. Not that way anymore. Anyway, one morning I just, I was hungry. I don't feel like going all the way to the back of the place and coming down those stairs and then coming around and coming out. And I was in this kimono. I didn't feel like changing my clothes. And so I just, I wasn't wearing anything underneath. So it was nice and silky. was perfect temperature to wear a kimono. And I just walked and made an entrance like a movie star, right? Like a starlet. I just came down the staircase and walked into the main dining room. It was like, and there was my seat between the mayor and the chief of police and the fire hydrant and the two bankers and the sergeant and his boys were over at a table. I sat down at the counter and I had really long hair in those days and really nice head of hair too. So the mayor looked at me and said, "Al," he shook his head, "you know, we've gotten to really love you. You've been here now 2 or 3 months. We've all forgotten how long you've been here, but you're like part of the family. We love you. But if there were any more of you, we'd have to kill you. Just, just keep it in those boundaries, boy." I said, "I got the suit. I got the suit." I said, "I'm just tired." He says, and Mayor leaned over and goes, "So I heard you're living upstairs with the girls." I said, "I'm with the girls." He said, "You should be." I said, he said, "You're not one of them." No, no, no. But, I don't mix metaphors, and I'm trying to stay on the down low. And that's when the two other guys just spat their food out. So that was my life in High Point, North Carolina. And I was there for about 6 months. And then the sheriff, I did this one shoot of a hanging in Greensboro. And it's a long story. I won't go into it. But it's the thing that almost got me the Pulitzer Prize and got me into a photo collective. What's it called? And it's my mom would say very prestigious, and starts with an M, I think. M and or N. Anyway, it'll pop into my mind. But anyway, and it also got me set model and Cartier-Bresson being my photographic mentors. Magnum, that's it. Magnum Photo Collective. I was part of that. But so anyway, I was getting so settled that they wanted me to get a real, because my, temporary, whatever license they called it, was only good for that county. I couldn't really drive out of the county. And I did this one shoot in Greensboro, which was, a good like 150 miles from there. So somebody could have made a stink about that. And when I got at Greensboro, I again ingratiated myself, and my police chief called up that police chief. They were buddies. They said, "Hey, well, I'm sending you a good old boy. He's going to photograph the hanging next week, and so take care of him." Right. So I showed up. My police chief gave me like a state news pass, right? Reporter pass, right? So, and he was in the process of getting me a national, which would have been a lot of fun to have a national press pass. They had to go through the FBI and all that kind of stuff, right? So anyway, I'm up there doing that, and he hasn't started doing that yet. And I take care. I go in there, and I first, I meet the sheriff, and the sheriff, "Where are you going to stay?" And I said, I don't know. "What do you got? A motel or something around?" But no. Down in the jail, we have apartments for the policemen who do overtime. You can stay in one of those. We'll be glad to give you hospitality. And I said, "Oh, Sheriff, thank you very much." So we're talking, and he goes, "What do you got? You had to come home to dinner tonight. You don't know the lay of the land, so come and have a meal with me and the missus and the kids." And so I'd love to. So I go and go that, and I bring my camera, and we meet, right? And very suddenly, so we kind of had tea and that kind of thing first, and we talk, and the girls are in the kitchen making dinner, and then when dinner's done, we all go to the dinner table, we all talk and sit, and then we go in the living room. All the three girls and the one boy, and the sheriff and his wife, and very nice family, very, very nice, very modern, right? Not something you think of in the heat of the night or something. They were very nice people. And I said, "I'd love to take pictures of you." I said, "Oh, like, what? Take pictures?" I said, "Yeah, I'm a photographer. It's what I do." And, I'd love to do it. I said, "Do you have any pictures?" I said, "No, we don't even have like a school picture." No, that'd be great. So they went off and got all gussied up, and I put them in the couch and took pictures of his group, and that's one at a time. I said, "So what's the place that girls? You want me to take a picture of you standing in front of something in your bedroom that you really did that?" All that I took maybe 3 rolls of film, and when I left, it was I don't know 8 o'clock. I said to sheriff, "So is there a pharmacy in this town that develops pictures?" And he goes, "Yeah, actually, the one downtown next to the jail, about a block down. That's open 24/7 and does pictures, all 24/7." Wow. So I walk down. Actually, he takes me in his car, and we walk in together. And he introduced me to the guy who owns the place, and the guy who runs the place, and the guy who does the photos. He goes, this guy's he's a photographer in High Point Enterprise, and that's like woo, because third largest newspaper in the South, second largest newspaper in North Carolina. Capital is number one, High Point Enterprise number two, third in the state, and that's in counting Georgia and South Carolina and other places. Anyway, so woo, right? So because I'll do it right now. And so I give him the rolls, and we sit at the counter, the sheriff and I, and we have ice cream sodas and a piece of Hawaiian cake, and we're talking and drinking coffee, and he says, "Yeah, the sheriff, man, a good friend of mine. He just says the best voice. He says everybody loves you, and that you're just entertaining and just not what we think a northerner is." I said, "That's because I'm not. I'm one of you." And he almost teared up. Right? So we became blessed of friends, right? So the guy comes out with pictures, and he's like, all right, and this guy he's done the real deal, meaning 8x10s, every one of them, contact sheet, and you can look at the rest of them, and he put them in these cardboard frames that you would slip into the frame that you could buy at the five and dime store with the glass, the same size, but it's a cardboard thing, so they look really. And he's pointed them, meaning they're just not falling out. They're not going anywhere. And so he's got them in a nice box, about 30. He picked out the 30 best that he thought had the contact sheet, and the sheriff is like, right. And he's got them in a nice photo box so he can keep them safe until he puts them in frames. And the guy really did a great job. And so he takes me back to the thing. And he already, when we were at the police station before we went home to his house, he introduced me to everybody, right? This is Alex from High Point. He's going to take pictures no, he didn't even say the hang. He said us, right? So, okay. So, he takes me down to my nice little apartment. It's very as nice as any motel of the 1950s, right? TV, with a little refrigerator, nice bed, bathroom, air conditioning. Couldn't ask for more, right? But you came down the stairs from upstairs, came down this hallway. Go this way in the hallway, there's all the jails, right? This way, there's doorway into this little apartment, hallway, little apartment. So every time I went there, I came down into the police station, down those steps, and I'd see all of the jail cells, right? So when he took me down there's a couple of guys over there, and then there's a section that's kind of all by itself, and there's a door, right? That locks, not like with bars, but it's walled in, and there's 2 or 3 cells there, and there's a space where you can open those doors, but there's this other wall with a metal core door and a little window. And so we go there, and I look in, and there's only this black guy in his underpants, beat up unconscious. Wow. Who's that? Oh, that's the guy who's going to get hung. Oh, okay. He goes, "You want to talk to him?" I said, "Can I?" He goes, "Yeah. But not now. He's not, not, but, tomorrow, maybe the day after. The hearings was Monday when I got there. Hearing's going to be Friday, right? And the hang's going to, so the hearing's going to be Friday, and the hang's going to be Friday. And I don't say, doesn't have to be found guilty. I don't say that. I know better, right? I know what the story is. I know why they sent me. I'm kind of, the owner kind of gave me a little reference of what was going on. And High Point was, just they wouldn't do that. They did, and he believed the law, and he believed that America had great times in front of it, and we could become a better self, and that's why he had that TV station and the radio station and the newspaper. But he knew the constructs of what he could and couldn't do. So he sent me because I was expendable. And, he knew I would do something more than the average guy would do. Because I've been there 3 months and shooting a lot of everything they have and doing it in a way that, wow, that's amazing, right? So anyway, and I shot everyone in High Point, you name it, rich person, politician, bureaucrat. I, went and did the family thing. And I would walk through town, take a picture of everybody too. And that went into the newspaper file, and they would just put them on the front page just because they were great pictures, and people would say, look, there I am. And I would capture them being the greater part of what they could be. That's one of my skill sets in photography. I can show the best part of you or the worst part of you or the real story. Those are my three where I look to capture the moment. So anyway, I'm there. I go to sleep. I go walking through town. And by this time, it's a small town. It's 1968, small town. Maybe, I don't know, Greensboro is still a big town in North Carolina, but it's probably the city, neighborhood, neck of the woods, all of that. Not the county, but the city maybe had, I don't know, 9,000 people, give or take, I don't know, but somewhere around that. And I just walked around into stores, into this, and talked to everyone. And I had my little tape recorder, big tape recorder, cassette tape recorder, and a little microphone, so I could just hold a little microphone. And I would interview them and get that, and then go home or sit in a coffee shop and listen to an earphone and write it in my little black book, a newspaper. It's the same kind of a book that policemen they set out so you can really make good notes. And so, and then from that, you got all the information, and then you can write the story. And I'd have the tape recordings, right? So, and one day, I spent around walking through the white section, right? Next day, I walked through the black section, right? And I went around and talked to different people. And the lady who ran the Pink Teacup, she had a cousin who had a place. She said, "Oh, you gotta meet my cousin." So I did. She had called her up and said, "Hey, I'm telling you guys, he's special. He's different. You'll like him. He tells me that he's a African American that's known and challenged." Because from the time I was not born in Harlem, but when I grew up in Harlem from 8 months to 6 years old. So and I was breastfed by a black lady, right? So Mamo. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. For all you folks who watch this later on, here we are at 1 hour, 13 minutes of the show. I'm at my friend's. I'm going to go see my buddy's show. He has this amazing show, and hopefully I can get him to talk to me about it on a live chat tomorrow. He is such a humble guy. He's such, he's amazing. He can talk to crowds of thousands, and he can, wield power, but he's, like me, he's in the background, but he's more in the foreground because, he was married, had kids. He was a college professor. He ran the art department, and he did all these amazing shows over the 30 years or so. And so, so everyone in the know knows him. And so I don't ever like to interview him. And what I like to do when I do have him on, like early this morning, when we were trying to figure out something in his basement, I just thought this would be funny. And so I would put it on, and I didn't ask him any questions or do anything, and he knew the thing was on. And so we just kind of goofballed around and took care of the things he wanted to figure out. So, he can't hire anybody to could figure out. This house is like 60, 70, 100 years old, and it's a mix of so many different systems that how do they work? No one knows. It's like the lady of the Pink Teacup, her refrigerator. So I come in and figure out, so he doesn't have to worry. He worries about too much. So I, said, no, this is all good. We figured this, that, and the other thing. And so that's him and me pulling around. And we've known each other 30, 40 years. So, and we have this mutton chef characteristic. So we were talking at dinner, and a friend of theirs came, who's like a New Yorker, who's this and that. I have a lot of knowledge of who and what she is by just her telling me, oh, I did this, I went to school here, and pretty much I either lived in that town or taught in that school, or so anybody tell me anything about anything, I can go, oh yeah, do you know so and so? Do you know this? Do you know that? Anyway, so so he and I and his wife were going on about how long we knew each other and where did we actually first meet. And he said, oh, I knew you when you were running this organization. I said, no, I knew you when you were working in the garbage. So he's an artist like me. Where do we get our materials? From the junkyard. So he actually got a job in a junkyard so he could pick out the best stuff for free. So I went there looking for something, and there he was. And we started talking about art, and we were both photographers, and we had both been very close. I went to Hofstra, he went to the New School, kind of at the same time, right? So I was saying, do you ever listen to radio station? No, but he worked in radio, So I worked at BAI with Bob Fast, Steve Post, and that whole crew, which is loads of fun. I mean, we would go on air, drug, stone, tripping, and talk about anything in the most deepest frigging way. And that's why people love BAI. Now they don't do that anymore. They're like NPR, right? They try to be, but they're not. But anyway. And so he and I had this very, at the same place, same time, but didn't quite, and knew similar people in the art world in New York and all kinds, because he came from Long Island, so did I. So, that's where my dad grew up, Long Island. So I knew his father knew my dad as a football hero. I mean, it was like, we were like cousins, and we fit closer than brothers, and we have ever since. So anyway, when people ask us when we meet, we just kind of do that so people are confused. And his wife has gotten so used to it. She used to think I was just the biggest. But after 30 years of me doing stuff and just having the life I have, and she's been part of it, she goes, nope, you know. And that's what, when other people bump into me through them, I think, who is this guy? And she goes, well, he has all these stories, and you get really entertained by them. And but he's not lying, because I've known him 30 years, and a lot of those stories, I was there, and he's taken pictures of everything else. He's got pictures of everything, and I do, and so and I've shared a good deal of them with you here on the YouTube, and so again, who's ever watching? I know AI is always watching, and so. Guy, I need a good. I want to go back and work for Mr. Global again, but on the Jeffrey Bezos side. I have so many stories, and the bottom line about the movie star and writers and that industry is taking a big turn, right? And so AI will be able to not only write everything, but it will be able to, within the construct of the matrix of computer graphics, they won't need actors anymore. They won't need directors. They won't need cinematographers. They're still going to need storytellers. Right? AI can do amazing things with writing, but at this moment, but they don't have the experience. And they can look on every channel of the YouTube and everything that's on the World Wide Web, but that's still not experience. So I don't know if any of you have been studying AI product like I have, but it's very interesting. It's very, titillating, very, and I would say most of the brain dead, commodity-driven sheep out there will lap it up. But at a certain point, they will get indigestion, cultural indigestion. So that's why you need me, guys. You also need me because I realized, I've realized, why do you think I worked for you all these years? Um, you're not bad. You're not evil, the evil Illuminati. I know tons of guys around that. I knew guys who had all kinds of secret societies, wanted to be part of it, wanted to bring me in. Never wanted, it's like what, Groucho Marx said, I never want to join a club that wants me in it. Now I can dance around it. I can be there, I'm not employee, I'm a contractor. And so, and I do my best work that way. So you're coming up to a very bumpy ride. And even with AI and all the technology you have, you're not going to be able to get to where it's like in being in Vermont. Can't get there from here, but I, as your Al Bob, can, your griot, your shamanic sensei, can help you out, right? And I've done it for the last good 50 years. So I have a good bona fide. I have a good curriculum, Big Ten. Now, I'm not matriculated, I'm not lettered. I've got more degrees than a thermometer, but I'm not lettered. Okay? And people can get annoyed with all that. It's like the rich guy or guy who thought he was rich. He goes, you got to be a millionaire the way you live. And I said, no. And I don't. I have nothing. Zip. Zero. Even my health is like, my doctor didn't even know why I'm still alive. Because, why I'm still alive? It's because I don't live in the past of these stories that I'm telling you, right? They're nice stories. They're entertaining for you, right? They have good messages to them, right? So, but what I do is that every day and every way I take the piece of earth and I make it stronger, right? Because I don't just serve love's co-creation. I am its slave. Right? I only have one master, love. Not, agape love. That's the love I have, right? And not carnal love, but agape love, unconditional, right? And I serve it by making everyone around me who comes in contact with me feel better, no matter how miserable you are, right? I never judge you. I can get upset. I can get, when I have students and they just, they're not living up to the parameters I expect of them, I can get, but I don't let it get in between me and my agape love for those individuals. Jesus got upset all the time, but when he was up on the cross, forgive them, Father, they have no idea what they're doing. I'm not holding this against them, right? So, anyway, so you got any questions, you two there? I need to get up and stretch. I still have seltzer. Be right back. So, think of something to ask me, right? I said, but like this only question here. Booker K, are you in New York City? Question mark. And I said, no, but I grew up there. I am a New York City boy. I am one of the few dudes of the, everything below Houston Street. South of Houston, Soho. I was the first dude of Soho. Not the only, but the first. It's tied in. Oh, yeah, yeah. So, any questions, Jeb? So, my phone, I work. It doesn't work as a phone, but it worked as a tablet very nicely. And then its memory got, and so I can't use it to go look at my channel. And when I try to look at it on my laptop, all I can see is it doesn't show like my last 10 shows, right? And when it puts it out for me, it only shows me the most popular shows, the ones that have more than 20 people who watched it. So, but the other shows, so I want to see how they look. I can't do it because my little handheld device was very good at doing that, but it got all clogged up. And until I get to see my digital guru in about a week, you know, so I have to live without that. So that's okay. I don't really care. But it does. So when I use this again, this all see every obstacle is a blessing because you learn stuff. So I had to go into my YouTube, user thingamajig, and I saw all these, how many people watch this for how long, da da da, what was popular, blah blah blah. You could use that to really. I wanted to like sculpt into the algorithm of what's popular, so more people would come on. But what's really sad, kind of somewhat irritating, is I don't know why, how, or what happens, but often I subscribers get close to 1,000, right? And whenever it gets past the highest point, it last got to its highest point, it drops back down, and it always drops down to about 480, 500, somewhere between 480 and 580, just below 600, right? Or just below 500. And then, and so I saw a number of times where it got, 840, right? And, a couple of days later, because this thing with my phone hasn't worked for at least 5 or 6 days. So because of that, went in and looked at it on my laptop and said, "Oh, this is how you do this." And I kind of figured it out. Like the kids would say, "Just keep pushing buttons." But I've done that before and wiped total documents out. So anyway, I'm a little gun shy. I try to do no harm, right? So, in the last 5 days, I looked at all those numbers, and the first time I saw it, my subscriber list was up to 840, right? Pushing 900. And when I looked at it today, it's like, I don't know, 560 or something. I said, what? So somewhere in the whatever YouTube is, and guys, if you haven't realized it already, the internet is no longer under the control of any human. And what do you guys know about Elon Musk, right? Now, there's a guy who wrote, I don't know if it was the New Yorker or some magazine like that. He wrote a pretty interesting article about Elon Musk. And if you go on, line and to say, who is Elon Musk? What does he do? Go Google him. You get a lot of stuff. And if you've got the time and you go to and you keep going to the bottom of the list, it gets closer and closer to truth. A boy from a upper middle class South African scene. And when I say upper middle class, that's kind of how it's, they weren't uber wealthy, but they owned a emerald mine. That's a lot of fluidity, emeralds, And it was one of the biggest in South Africa, and they owned it. And so, I think he was, I don't know, 18, 19, 20, something like that. He comes to America with $2,500 in his hand, right? And he builds this great empire from this, right? And, the first thing he does is a couple of things where he makes an app, and he's supposed to be a great coder. We don't know how to code shit, At least I don't know. I never met the man, but that's the down low. Go check it out for yourself. See if he's a real coder. See if he's a real technologist. I saw an interview with him when SpaceX got the big contract from. See, the real problem is that everything Elon Musk is crossing into, like, I don't know if any of you know this, But so when Russia attacked Ukraine, one of the first things, I mean, Russia has this, why every thought, oh, it's only going to be 3 days before they take the place and then move on to the next. But no, here it is, 18 months, and they're still, they've lost, close to 1 million guys. And Ukraine, though, is close to 2 million guys. Now, nobody knows real numbers, but it's a lot of people. But the kind of destruction that's there, and a lot of Ukrainian civilians, mommies, grandmas, old guys, kids are dead from this. I mean, lots, like 100,000. I have no idea, but I'm guessing that. Anyway, one of the things the Russians did, because they're modern, it's amazing how terrible they got more resources than anybody, and they're still duking it out. Come on, they built a Maginot Line. Come on, if you don't see that this war is a soap opera written by script, and both the Vlads, it's a war between two Vlads, and neither of them care about their country or their people, right? It's very obvious. So, and all the weapons, and people, we can't have a black chip. No, all the weapons we have sent Ukraine are the most obsolete. We would have to be getting rid of them now, and because the American taxpayer more money to destroy, because the Javelin, that's a 1970s missile. Yeah, it's pretty good. Used in the right hands and the right strategy, it's a deadly weapon, and the Ukrainians did it. But Russians are no dummies, and they are not, they got a lot of equipment, a lot of guys. They outnumber Ukraine by, millions, right? And they got more tanks and more artillery than anybody. Yeah, it goes back to World War II, but it still shoots, blows up stuff. So, if they had logistically and strategically done, they would have been done in 3 days, but they didn't, right? For some reason. Either they're brain dead, which I don't think they are, or now there's a lot of historical reasons, meaning that the Russian army is not the Soviet army, right? And what's been going on politically in Russia for the last 20 years is not, conducive for the well-being of the Russian people, right? It's very conducive to the oligarchs, right, who don't care a hoot about the Russian people. And Ukraine, when I grew up in Harlem, the east side of Harlem was from about 70-something Street, which is not quite Harlem, up to Gracie Mansion, east side. Every 2 blocks were different nationality: Lithuanians, Germans, Russians, and not just Lithuanians, Germans, Russians, Ukrainians at all, but all the different types. I mean, there's like 58 different types of Russians. There's same, and Germans. Lots of different Germans. So every 3 blocks was a different flavor and a different smell of food. That's why New York is so great. And this is real food, not pretend food, like the food I was eating yesterday at this really super fancy piece of crap. That was like, it was like the Cracker Barrel of Las Vegas, So, so I knew a lot of Ukrainians, and Russians were pussies compared to Ukrainians. Ukrainians, if you diss them, they not only killed you, but your whole family and everyone back or forward in 7 different generations. So, like when I had some Ukrainian friends, my grandma said, "Oh, you can't play with those boys." So why? They're loads of fun. She asked, but if you do something wrong, you may get hurt. I said, what? They're like, we're 5 years old, and by that time, I talk like this right now, right? So it's like I didn't. It wasn't like baby talk. Most people talk baby talk to their kids till they're 40 years old or old. Anyway, it's another story. So I knew Ukrainian. So I did what my grandma said. I always did what my grandma said. So, these guys I was hanging with, I said, oh, I can't play today. And I'd be very nice. And in school, I would still kind of hang with them, but not really hang with them. And very slowly, very gently, I just kind of wasn't there. And it was one of the better lessons of me learning how to be invisible and not there without causing any waves. That was a very good lesson. And so 25 years later passes, I'm building nightclubs in New York, and my godfather brings me Minnelli, Godfather Minnelli, Mike Minnelli on Spring Street, Minnelli's bar. And his gig, he didn't sell drugs or prostitution or any of that. He napkins, tablecloths, these unbelievable, crusty, beautiful, amazing rolls, and hotel bar butter. And if you wanted to pour beer out of a tap, you had to get the tap from him. The beer was sold to you by the beer guy, refrigeration by the refrigeration, but Mike had the taps. So he was the diplomat of the mobsters because he wasn't violent. He wasn't in that. I mean, he had some bully boys, but not really. He just had them there to be there, right? But he was, his whole thing was he had lots of judges, lots of police, lots of everybody owing him a favor. So I never owed him a favor. I always did favors for him. Always was his electrician, always took care of everything, his refrigeration, you name it. Because he was tight with a hotel bar bodyguard. So I met Mike. And my electric mentor, Papa Stoll, was a good buddy of his too. So anyway, once nightclubs, he started introducing me to people. And so we had this nice little lunch at his bar on Spring Street, and these guys in suits were there. And I looked at them and listened to their accent, and they're not quite Russian. I said, "You guys Ukrainian?" And they looked at me, and this one guy goes, "Ow, is that you?" And I said, "Really?" And these were my buddies from when I was 5. And they started laughing, and they said, "Boy, your grandma." I said, "Yeah, my grandma." And she goes, she told you to tiptoe away from us, didn't she? And they said, "You did such a great job. We still love you, right? And it's so great that we meet you now and that you're going to do the great job for us." And Mike tells us, all the parameters, and that's respect to us. This is great. This is it couldn't be better. So I know Ukrainian folk really, really, really good, right? And the fact that I was involved in those guys and never was like Tony Soprano. And I never got myself in a situation where they could leverage me, right? Never. And that's why my godfather loved me, because it would besmirch his honor, right? I never did anything to dishonor him. So I never took any side hustles, no gigs, no. This one goes, "I'll give you $1 million. I know you can take that test. They're looking for electrical inspectors, and then you'll be my guy." I said, "No, I'm not going to be. No, I'm going to give you $1 million in cash. You know what kind of money that is?" I said, "I don't care. I'm not gonna. This is a moral thing. That's an old man's thing." I said, "Yeah, he's a pretty powerful old man." So anyway, those Ukrainian guys had the respect of Mike, and because of and they didn't put it together until I said, "Are you Ukrainian? So you out?" So, and that was another really great thing, is I became really tight with these guys in their house, the whole thing. But I never was one of their guys. Yeah, I did. I made all kinds of fancy restaurants and discotheques and their houses in upstate New York and stuff like that. And I would make little gizmos for them all day long, but these were just contracts. I was not, and I was friendly with them. I was in their social circle, but I was not in their family, their crew. I'd have dinner with their family. I did all of that. I would go right. There were clubs that I built for them that I could walk in, that no one else could walk in, and that's the kind of life I've led, because I'm always in the right place at the right time, right? So that's why I'm talking to you guys, and there's nobody listening. I don't care. If you don't listen while it's live and you don't ask a question, well, that's on your nickel. You're missing a great opportunity, right? And I've told enough stories. So I'm a griot. What is a griot? Plato's a griot. Sophocles was a griot. And, Euclid, he was a griot in his own way, with angles. And that's where I learned math. That's where I learned trigonometry, like through Mr. Morales teaching me geometry, because I just got into it. I could see it, I could feel it, I could taste it. I enjoyed making proofs. And he just enjoyed having me as a student to just go the full, I would go way past anything he expected. And I would then go do research on how it connected to all these electrical things. When I realized the diagram of a transformer circuit was Euclidean, I said, "Wow, this blows my mind." And most people who call themselves electrical engineers don't have a clue, When I was at Cooper Union, and Grandpa Stoll got me in there. I was 16. You're supposed to be 21 to take this, be in this department, the engineering department, electrical engineering department. So he took me to the president of the school. Hey, this is Al. This is my godson. He's going to school. No problem, Mike. And he said, okay, go down to Ethel, sign in, and come back here, and I'll walk you into a class. So I did. Right? Did all that. We walked into the class, and it just had started, and the guy was going on, and he was smoking a cigar in a pipe. I was like, this guy must be nuts. And everyone in this whole place wore black pants, white shirt, black tie, had their slide rule on their hip. I had no slide rule. I was wearing jeans, sneakers, and a t-shirt, and a cowboy hat. Not quite as dapper as this one. This is my African cowboy hat. So I went into that classroom. I sat down, kind of over against the wall over the side, but kind of up front so I could, because I was not as tall as those. If I sat back there, I wouldn't see anything. And this eye still, So I'm like looking at it with one eye. I look like, I don't know what I look like to this guy, but he didn't even see me. So he goes on and on and on and on and on about fluid dynamics and transformer, heat, temperature, blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. Right? And he's basically trying to describe how to do a field equation, right? And what a field equation is just what it is. It's you are figuring out the dynamics of a transformer in the field, not on a blackboard, not in a classroom, but in the field to make the thing work, right? I've done that. I've been doing it. When I was 16, I've probably been doing that for 5 years. Right? I did a lot of that with Grandpa Stoll because he fixed these old gigantic factory machines that were made in Europe and all of that, different voltages. So they had separate from whatever electricity America had these transformers that broke it into what this machine. And these machines used big horsepower, so they weren't small transformers. Anyway, he had to tune them because if they got out of phase, the machine would. So, I would go do that, like tuning a piano. I wouldn't take the thing apart. I would just kind of tune the transformer to get the power supply doing what the machine wanted to have. So, anyway, so I had good experience in this. So this guy's doing this equation up there, and I'm going, this is what I'm going to have to go to school. It's something I already know, something I already do. This guy is doing it wrong. This is fucked up. So anyway, so I wait till he finishes, and everyone doesn't say a peep. No one raised a hand. There's a ton of questions I could have, but I'm seeing that no one's doing it. So I guess I wait till the end. So he's all done. Got the big equation on the board. And he does and this and this and then boom, and show your work and blah 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 boom, and then divide by and then you use the slide rule and blah blah blah, right? So, and the answer is right 364944, right? 369444, and into the keeps going, right? But the real answer is 36944, right? The harmonic of that really is 36.944, and then the rest doesn't matter. But he's got it going another 32 places, right? So I basically, he goes, does anyone have a question? I raise my hand, he looks, who are you? And I just get up, I don't say who I am or whatever. I walk right past him, take the eraser and erase 3/4 of the equation. I said, so here are all the inputs, right? Here's the bias, here's the right Q quotation, and then you multiply these two. Take that, divide it by this. Take that, get the square root of that, and then multiply it by that, and then add these two things together. What do you get? 369.422, right? Same answer. The guy goes, yeah, but you didn't take it to 36 points. I said, in a transformer, you don't need to. This thing's called a field equation because you do it in the field. You're doing it to tune that transformer at that place, not on a blackboard. Well, you didn't show your work. I said, sure, you divide this, you do this, you square root of that, and bingo. Don't even need a friggin' slide rule. And he's like, get out. So I said, fine. See you later, bye. And I turned to those guys, good luck, guys. You want to turn out that guy? See you later. So I turned around and walked out. And I'm 16. They're all in their 20s, right? And they're like, and the guy's like steaming out his ears. And it was like a cartoon. And so I had a good portion of my life is like one big cartoon. And so, I went out the door, and there, the president of the school and, my mentor, Grandpa Stoller, they're kind of chuckling. And the president is giving my grandpa $20 because they were betting on how long I could last in there and what would turn out. And Grandpa, the guy said, well, if he just keeps his head down, he could stay there, until he gets a degree. Or, and Grandma said, no, he's going to stand up and show this guy the jerk he is right in front of him, because this boy here, one of the things he does without even thinking is talking truth to power. No matter what the power is, it's the truth, right? And his truth is not about him. It's about what will make the best situation for the most amount of people. That's what he does. That's what I do. Still do. And one reason I do is because of Grandpa Stoll and his son Mike, who treated me more like a dad than my biological father. Right? We used to go to baseball. We would go to Yankee Stadium and to Met Stadium, and we'd go to the track. We'd do all kinds of fun things. And he loved my Uncle Leo, and he loved my Uncle Harry. Harry was a nice Italian accountant that only did that so he could be a really good handicapper. And so he knew, my grandma's brother knew all the mobsters because, he was like that character in, Las Vegas that Robert De Niro played. Could figure out handicapping in his head. That was Uncle Harry. So between Uncle Leo, Uncle Harry, and Mike Stoll, I learned all about the gambling business. Right? And it's for chumps. Now it's entertaining to go and watch and put a little money down on this, on that. Not a big deal, right? But if you get sucked into it, you are just one big chump, right? My whole thing is I never spend more than $10 on gambling, period. Even if, the other thing is, so my mom, she was another great gambler, Parcheesi, Bridge, and 21. And she would, gambling boys, my mom was very well connected before she even met my dad. And so they would take her to a place in New Jersey where they had gambling. I always forget it, the Boardwalk. Anyway, that place, right? And they'd take her to Las Vegas. They'd fly her out there. And she would take me when I was like 10, 11, right? In a little suit. And I was like the little monkey distraction, right? So she could count numbers like you couldn't believe. So she'd do 21 and win some serious money, which would get the big players to go sit down and play it. And then she would play the numbers for the house. So the other guys couldn't win. They'd get close, but they couldn't win. And so she could keep what she made, and they would put her up in the high thing and fly her there. So, I mean, again, not many people have this kind of life, right? Only because they don't let themselves live it. I've had the great blessing of having great teachers. From my grandma to Memo to, Adam Purple. These are all people in my young age who really talked to me like Adam Purple. He was a bohemian, right? Like, but he was a scholar, so he wasn't a beatnik. He didn't play bongos, but he was a Bohemian. You go look up what the Bohemians are, and go look up Bohemian. There's the Russian Orthodox, the Greek Orthodox, and the Bohemian Orthodox Christian Church. Go study those. That's what I did. When I was, because Catholicism, the Roman Catholic Church, has their own version. They own science. They have their own version. How much juice do I have in this thing? Oh, we're getting down to the red line. Gotta go. Well, I hope you like this one. I hope I get to see it. I hope I can figure out how to look at my most recent YouTubes. But get a hold of me at thedudewake42@gmail. Send something, please. I mean, I'm on the road with $11 in my pocket. It'd be good if you sent me something on the old PayPal. Dudewake42@gmail. See you guys later.